Thursday. We are at the Northeast Georgia Swap Meets 3-day show for April. It's a little dead today. Weather is threat of rain has chased a lot of people away. But as promised, we got Valdez here. And let me give you a really quick tour of what we're going to do. So here's the windowed 396. It's on a stand in front of the truck. We are going to tear it apart and see why it broke. And then my buddy Bill, say hi, Bill.
Hi.
And our hero Daniel.
Hello.
Have decided that the 402 that we put into it that lost all kinds of oil pressure and we think wiped the cam lobe.
Cap that with, or
we're going to pull it apart, see what happened. We suspect that it lost a cam lobe. So if it did, we know the cam lobes in that engine are good. So we're going to try to put them in this engine. We're going to do a cam swap and a lifter swap and see if I can't actually drive this thing the last 60 miles home under its own power. Stay tuned. And this is what we found. Contrary to what everybody told us we were going to see, the lifters did not eject from the hole. That is not why we lost oil pressure. However, we did explode one lifter. So, yeah, we're going to work on that. But, yeah, pulling the push rods, the rocker arms, and the plug, had that one lifter right there not exploded, we'd have gotten home. Well, we found our oil leak, or actually our loss of oil pressure. This is the bottom of the lifter on the back exhaust valve. They're not supposed to have a hole in the middle of them. They're not supposed to be dished out either. So that's what the cause was. Greetings from the end of the Northeast Georgia's 3-day spring swap meet. The show was a complete bust. Weather killed it. The weathermen didn't get the predictions right. Wednesday and Thursday and Friday scared everybody away. They got it right on Saturday. It was miserable all day Saturday, but I'm of the opinion that weathermen couldn't predict yesterday's weather with a 50% accuracy rate. So we had to thrash and just get the camper here because I needed to be here on Wednesday to start putting everything together for the show. So we got it here, we got it dropped off. I lived in the camper for 3 days. The weather was decent on Thursday and Friday, so we took the top part of the motor off to see what killed the cam in this one and the replacement motor. And we also mostly or somewhat tore down the 396 that grenaded and found the damage in that. We did manage to find a aluminum intake here at the swap meet for it with a spread bore. So it's an oval port spread bore intake, so I can use the quadrajet. So we'll get that back on instead of lifting the real heavy cast iron intake over the hood and fenders. And that's it. So we're going to start getting the thing back together, and the goal is to drive it from here 30 miles to its new home. And we'll claim that as a victory. Yay. All right. So here's the timing chain in the 396 that I grenaded. And you'll notice something. Two things about it. One, it's got the original GM stamps. And the other is its nylon teeth. This was a low-mile original motor. This is the upper timing gear for Big Black Chevy. My buddy Kevin Johnson over at American Vintage Parts here in Georgia. He had this on the shelf. He's got a ton of stuff. 30s, all the way to the 30s and 20s up to 80s, I guess. It's a lot of new old stock stuff. This was the only part that he had for a timing chain set sitting on the shelf. But as it turns out, it's the only part we needed. So we were happy to grab that rather than run the risk of shearing the teeth off the original nylon gear from the 396. Check out Kevin at AmericanVintageParts.com. You'll see all kinds of cool stuff on his website. Well, Daniel's over there actually working to get things done. I'm over here screwing around with casting dates and part numbers. We had some issue with the carburetor linkage earlier. I hadn't realized exactly what the issue was. That intake is a high rise. That one is a low rise. So that one's off the original motor. That one's off the 402 that we swapped in. Did a little bit of checking, and it looks like this is a 71 or 72 402 or 454 low-rise intake. Though I went to Mortec, Anyway, I went to the GM casting number site that's real popular and found the casting number, but it said that it doesn't come with an oil splash shield. That's got one. So, I don't know. I'll dig into that a little bit more later. This one is a 66 325 horse 396. So that jives with everything that we've seen. I was told that the engine was off of a 67 model year. The casting number could be 67. I have to figure out how to find the date code. So it's either a 325 horse or a 350 horse, I guess. Anyway, that is not going back on. So that will be available for sale if anybody'd like to help me defray the costs of this whole adventure. All right, I would have shown the intake manifold going on, but one, we've all seen that, and two, I ran to go get a Wendy's food run because we haven't eaten all day long, and when I got back, Daniel had the timing cover on and the intake on. So I will show you or tell you about the intake and why I'm so happy that I got this at the swap meet. It's actually a spread bore, which is cool, because now we can use the quadrajet on it that came with the car, or came with the truck, because we know that works real well. It's a Performer 2.0. I'm not sure what the 2.0 is, but I know typically the Performers have a lower RPM range than the Performer RPM. So ideally, I wanted to find one of these intakes anyway, though I thought I was going to put a square bore on it, and one thing led to another, so here we are using it right now, and I'm very happy about all that. So that's it. The camshaft out of the 396 is in. The lifters are all good. Daniel set the valve lash on all of them. Getting ready to put the balancer on, and the carburetor, he's about to drop the ignition in. Distributor. And that's where we are. And it's alive again. I'm going to quit jinxing it. But apparently, the 396 cam and the 402 with the Edelbrock intake is a nice combination. Who knew? So we are in a livestock barn in Clarksville, Georgia at the Habersham County Fairgrounds, thus completing our multi-state, multi-parking lot truck restoration and rebuild. We'll have to do this again sometime, because it was just all kinds of fun. Made it home under its own power. Ish. Let me stretch that parameter a little bit. But we are home, and we figured out the source of the oil leak, finally. So after leaving Clarksville, between Clarksville and my house in Jefferson, it is 43 miles. We went through 9 quarts of oil in 43 miles. And then we got to looking around a little bit. We checked the firewall, because I thought for sure that it had to have been the oil gauge line for the mechanical oil gauge. Firewall was dry. Valve covers were dry, top of the motor was dry, and then that's when Daniel found where it was leaking from, and I'll show you that in just a second. There is our culprit. So it's the mechanical fuel pump. This is the pump that was on the 396. We pulled it off. Now, this camper, somebody had replaced that mechanical fuel pump with an electric pump for the 3 tanks, which is probably a good idea. They just disconnected these lines. So you can see just right there, that's a mechanical fuel pump port. So what ends up happening sometimes with an old mechanical fuel pump is the rubber diaphragm in it gives out. So for those that don't know how mechanical fuel pumps work, there's an arm on it that goes into the block and gets actuated by a eccentric on the end of the camshaft, and it's pivoted in the middle. It goes like this, and at this end, my wrist end, it works against a rubber diaphragm. Essentially, it's a lot like the old hand pumps for old wells. It goes into the block, and there's a gasket to seal the oil into the block around the fuel pump base. When that mechanical pump's diaphragm breaks, ruptures, falls apart, whatever, then there's really nothing between the arm and the oil in the engine block and the top half of the pump, which means your mechanical fuel pump turns into a mechanical oil pump, and it starts pumping oil like John Rockefeller's gushers back in the 19-teens. And that's what ended up happening. This thing just started pumping oil everywhere. I didn't think about it. That's where the oil was going after we fixed the valve cover issue with the 396. So I'm confident that this thing killed the 396. And this thing is what caused us to have an incredibly thirsty 402 because we just put the same pump back on. So I think we could have avoided all of that had we put in a mechanical fuel pump block-off plate. This is after a couple days worth of rain in the front of my house. That's oil. That streak going down there is oil. That's oil. So this thing needs a really good hosing off. Anyway, that's it. We got them under our own power. This week it'll be getting a mechanical fuel pump block-off plate, and it should be good to go. Again, I keep saying that, and it keeps biting me in the ass. But anyway, there we are. If you've enjoyed this series on my idiotic road trip to go get this camper, like and subscribe to my page. This wasn't a one-off deal. I've done these kinds of trips before. This was the most fun-filled and adventuresome trip. All of them have gone kind of sideways to varying degrees, minor things in their own right, but certainly minor compared to this. But this wasn't a one-off deal. And I didn't buy the camper just to launch a YouTube channel. That's my house, and I've signed a contract on it to sell it. So in the next month, I've got 1 month to get out of it and get out of my shop. And that means that I've got a month to do all of that, which is going to be an enormous undertaking, but also to get this camper livable, because I do plan on living in the camper for about 6 months. I own Northeast Georgia Swap Meet, and I'm buying a piece of property in Livonia, Georgia, and we're going to expand our show offerings going forward. So this is kind of a big stepping point. There's a warehouse up there, and I'm going to be bouncing in the camper between the warehouse and a couple of state parks nearby. I've got a lot of stuff to do to the camper to make that livable. I got to get the utilities going. I've got to get new carpet in it. Some cosmetic stuff, like I'll replace the drapes and whatnot. We're going to be doing articles or doing videos on all of that. We'll do videos on, I've got a new wiring harness coming in. I'm going to be upgrading the thing a few different ways without losing its character. I've got a 454 Chevy lined up already with a quadrijet. I've already got an NV 4500, not the one that we lunched with the white dually, but I've got another NV 4500 in the shop already. I'm going to look at a couple of corporate 14-bolt dually rear ends, so I'll get a better gear choice. Those are going to go under this thing. I'm not going to be destroying the character of the thing. I'm just going to be making it a lot more livable and drivable by our current standards. This past week I picked up a front cross member out of a 78 one-ton dually, so I'll get disc brakes and a heavy sway bar. All that's going to go in. May or may not add air conditioning to the driver's cabin. We're definitely going to add a mini split to the living area, and we're just going to make it a good truck and something that we can jump in and drive anywhere in the country. So if you'd like to watch all of that as that unfolds over the coming months, subscribe to the channel. Give me a second and I'll show you a couple other things that we're going to be doing this year. Other things we'll be doing this year, we're going to be prepping this car to take it on first power tour, and we're doing that as a shakedown for drag week. It's got a stroked 390 FE engine in it, a power glide, 8 3/4 rear, zoomies. It's a hardtail rear end, and I am not putting any kind of suspension in it. So we're going to take that on power tour and on drag week. And with power tour, we'll probably use the camper as a chase vehicle with a trailer. We've also got a 24 Hours of Lemons car. It's ridiculous, it's fun, and we've decided this year that we're going to prep it for Bonneville. We found a Bonneville record that works for that class real well, and then we're going to get done and we're going to put a big block in the Metro. So a big block for a Metro is a 1.3 liter instead of the 0.99 liter that's currently in it. We'll also be doing some random restorations of different things just as I come across them. This is a pair of Army field tables. One of them is dated 1945. Just clean these up a little bit, round the corners of them. This vintage 3-burner grill I found in the dead abandoned camper in a junkyard. All the pieces were there, believe it or not. I had to dig through the leaves. We're going to restore that because I'm going to use both of these when I'm living in the camper. We'll also be doing random shop stuff. That engine is an old top fuel motor that I came across at an unbelievable rate or price. That is going to go in a 26 Dodge 2-door sedan, and I am building that for next week's drag week. I'll be doing a walk around in this whole shop that I'm moving out of, showing some of the things that I did to it to make it a lot more functional and a lot better work area. And then we'll be setting up the new shop. I've got a bunch of other projects that I'm going to be doing and working on over the course of the year as well. I'll be setting all of this stuff up. I'll be doing random shop tips on this. I'll be random tech tips. I came across a gazillion of them while I was a tech editor for car magazines for 20 years. We'll do show coverage probably because I'm planning on going to a bunch of shows. We'll do road trip stuff. And that's pretty much it. We're just going to be doing hot rod stuff. Kind of overkill hot rod stuff. So if all this sounds like something you'd like to follow along with, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. See you next time.